So I'm curious, you guys have a great rapport with each other, which is always a good thing when you work together and are married. Those are good things. It helps. I'm curious how you come up with and manage ideas between the two of you. Like, is there a process that the two of you use to come up with and vet the ideas? And welcome, everyone. My name's Bob Safian. I'm the former editor of Fast Company, founder of the Flux Group, and host of the podcast Masters of Scale Rapid Response. And I am your moderator for this session. It's great to be back with the PMI Virtual Event Series. You have some terrific guests joining us here today, Karin Hurt and David Dye. They are the authors of the book Courageous Cultures: How to Build Teams of Micro-Innovators, Problem Solvers, and Customer Advocates. You'll enjoy it. It's fun. Karin and David, great to see you.
Oh, great to see you. We're delighted to be here.
Such a pleasure.
Like, is there a process that the two of you use to come up with and vet the ideas?
So I'm laughing because Dave would say, please, Karin, don't have so many ideas. So that's definitely the difference in our personality. But one of the things, and this actually, it's really interesting that you say that, because this is something that we've really had to be deliberate about managing in our relationship. It wasn't pretty at the beginning. Because it's really frustrating if you are an idea person to have your operations partner be like, no.
So a couple of things to help with that. If you're the idea person, and as many project managers are probably on the other side of that, but you might have ideas too. Like I like to say, I have ideas, but the ratio is about 1 to 10. So Karin will have 10 amazing ideas for every one that I'm contributing in terms of vision. A lot more of my ideas are operationally focused about how we can improve, how we can achieve whatever that thing is that you're looking at. So if you are the dreamer who is having all of those ideas, to take the time to do a little bit of vetting first and not externalize all of them to your operations people who are immediately going to try to run and do something with them, because that will burn them out very quickly. If you are the more operations mindset, like many, I know if you're watching today, project managers, to ask and say, so that's a cool idea. First, validate it. What's interesting about that idea? Well, I see where that would be a pretty cool idea. That would help us to do that. So I'm curious how this fits in with the other three strategic priorities we have right now. Are we thinking that it dovetails? Is it going to replace one of those? How does it align? What are you thinking there? And oftentimes the answer is, I'm not sure that it does. Let me think about that. And so that kind of give and take can help refine and get the best ideas to bubble up and then integrate into the bigger plan.
Yeah, and I would say the key there is communication. There is absolutely no way that we would have done the fast pivot that we were able to pull off. We would not be here having this conversation with you like this if David had not been able to think through an entire project plan to make that happen. And I had to realize that there were some of the other things that I had planned for us that were very strategic that had to pull back, right? Those were not the most important things to happen right now. He had to take the lead. It was his turn to lead, and it was my turn to take a step back and swallow some of those ideas and save them for another day.
How do you know, David, when to be like blunt with Karin, to just say like, yeah, that's not a good idea? Or is that just going to hurt her feelings? You say, well, let's think about that. Like, how straightforward is that engagement?
How much caffeine have I had? What time in the morning is it? If it's 5:30 in the morning, it often looks like this. If it's later, and I say that tongue in cheek, but that's really true, because that's one of the things we've had to. These days it takes 2 cups of black tea before I'm ready to hear an idea, and prior to that it's a hold on. But in general, as a communication technique, if I am being blunt and stepping on somebody else's dreams, never a good idea. That's not effective. It may be how I'm feeling. It may be the way I would just default, and I'm not coming as my best self. And Karin can probably tell you 10 times that I have done exactly that in the last 48 hours, I would imagine. But the reality is, if I'm aspiring, my best self I'm aspiring to, I want to respond in a way that is going to keep the relationship going, because it's not about that idea, and it's not about this project. It's about the next 5 years. And the relationship that we're building and that you're building with your senior leader to achieve the projects in a way that's going to make sense for the organization and keep everybody involved healthy and sane.
And you know what's really interesting is that in this research, we have heard so many people say, you know what? I had an idea. My boss didn't listen. I backed down. And did you know what? Our competitor did it and they made $1 gazillion, right? There are so many stories. I mean, just like piles and piles of stories like that. And so I think about, if you're a vision person, when is it time to be tenacious? And, I tell a story in our book about this massive transformation of our 2,200 person sales team and how that evolution happened. The backstory that I don't share is that we went from 2% of our sales to being in one market to 20%. At about 4%, when we were there, I went into my boss, who was the president, and said, I have an idea. Here's what we need to do. And this is what we would call building an infrastructure for courage. We need to pull our 8 of our best salespeople out of the field and put them in training roles. We need to do that. And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. None of the other regions are doing that, Karin. That's a terrible idea. But I didn't back down. And so what? But he was my boss. So you have to, there's a difference between courage and stupidity, right? So I said to him, here's the thing. I respectfully disagree. I think it is a good idea. What percentage do we need to be at before you will back me to do the things that I want to do with infrastructure? And he said, 8%. So, right, that's all I needed to hear, right? So now I run back to my sales team and did a how can we? I'm like, we have to get to 8% because now we're going to get what we need. We got to 8%. And he knew. He already got the report when he heard the knock on his door. And he was like, all right, what do you want?
And that how can we question, I think really, Bob, gets to the synthesis of everything that you're asking us here, which is, and it's at the heart of courageous cultures, which is you've got ideas, you've got goals, you've got dreams, you've got objectives, and you've got constraints. And that's the world we all live in. And so frequently when the reality of those two things hits, we have a how can we conversation. How can we achieve this goal in light of these priorities? How can we get this done and with these time constraints or these budget constraints? And sometimes the answer is, well, we can if, and then that forces you to start looking at all the alternatives. And so that kind of process has amazing results and yields amazing creativity and can bring all of those competing interests together to get good solutions.
So I'm going to ask you one last question that comes from PMI's CEO, Sunil Prashara, who said about courageous cultures, it offers simple steps to nurture a bold culture that encourages people to speak up and take smart risks. So what's the simplest step we can take?
Well, we'll give you a 2-step. So the first step is you want to be very clear about a specific area that you need an idea. Just come up with one idea, one area. I need an idea here. And then go out and ask a courageous question and be very specific about what it is and why, and be humble and be open to hear it.
And then since there's 2 of us, you get a second simple step, which we shared earlier. It's be on the lookout for where you can respond. Maybe it's an idea that was brought in answer to the question. Maybe it's just one that came across in a conversation half an hour after you turn off this video, right? And that is, thank you. Thank you for thinking about how we can improve. Here's some additional information about your thought, your idea, and I would love to get more of your thinking on this subject.
I want to thank you guys for sharing all of your ideas and your research and your hard work and making it seem very calm and fun for all of us at a time when I know everyone who's listening is under a lot of pressure. So I really appreciate it.